welcome to an algebra tutorial video talking about linear equations and comparing different forms of linear equations. So if you've been going through an algebra class or if you've been watching my video series, you know we've talked about three different types of linear equations, three different forms or ways to write out linear equations. We have standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. So again, we have a, b, and c are my coefficients, and they're all whole numbers. A has to be even positive, but it's standard form. We also have point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, which uses the slope m and then a specific point the line goes through to write an equation. And then finally, the last one here, but it was the first one we learned, was slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Now, there's some different strengths and weaknesses each one has, and we've talked a lot about being able to be fluent, going back and forth between different forms, how to interpret different forms, converting from one form to the next. But in this one, I just wanted to specifically point out, well, what are the strengths and weaknesses? When would you want to use one form over the other? So let's start with standard form. Standard form is nice because it's just clean. There's no decimals, there's no fractions, there's nothing tricky to simplify. It's just a clean form to look at. Clean, easy to use. And you can easily substitute a value in for x to find y. You can easily substitute a value in for y to find x, so it's good for solving equations. It's easy to solve. Let me write easy to solve. I would also say it's easy to find the x and y intercepts. You can put 0 in for x to solve for the y-intercept, put 0 in for y to find the x-intercept. What it's not very good for is it's not good for graphing. So not easy to graph. I mean, I guess you could generate some points, but I think if you want to graph your linear function, slope-intercept form is a much easier form because you already have the slope, you already have the y-intercept right there. So it's not the easiest to graph, although you could generate a table of x and y values and come up with a graph. All right, point slope form. This one is the messiest looking one, right? It's got subtraction signs, it's got more symbols in there, it's got a parentheses we have to be careful distributing. So how is point slope helpful? Well, it is the easiest to write an equation. So easiest to get an equation with. We'll talk more as we get into linear modeling, but if all you have is 2 points and you're asked to write an equation of a line that goes through those 2 points, the easiest way to do that is to use point slope form equation. So it's the easiest to write an equation. We can easily tell the slope. But I would say it is hard, or I would say it's more difficult to make a table or graph. Just because there's more symbols, there's more things you have to calculate or be aware of if you're trying to visualize or see the pattern involved here. All right, last one, slope-intercept form. To be honest, it's my favorite. It's easy to graph because you have the slope and the y-intercept. It's pretty clean. It's easy to graph, easy to make a table of values. It's clean, so it's not that complicated. You already got y by itself. It's easy to find y values. So if you have specific x values, put them in, you calculate it out, and you'll get a y value back. Yeah, slope-intercept form. It's not the easiest to write equations with. I would say if you want to write an equation, it's easier to use point slope form, but you can use slope intercept form as well. So there you go. There's three different forms. Um, you want to be comfortable with all three of them. Some of them are easier to use for specific reasons than others, although you could force yourself to use just one form for everything. Hopefully that's helpful for you as you're kind of sitting back, reflecting on everything you've been learning with linear equations and forms of linear equations. And I just encourage you to practice, practice, practice. Get used to all three forms and how to do math, how to represent linear situations with all three of these different forms.